Hi, welcome back to another episode of His and Hers. I'm Deanna.
And I'm David.
And we're back.
Back. So our topic is do you believe? Believe in what? God. I mean, in today's generation, there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of atheists. We want to explore our ancestors, previous generations, their thoughts on God and how they compare to today.
The first thought came to mind actually was George Carlin for me, because he was atheist and he used to do a comedy bit. He doesn't
7 words you can't say on television.
Yep.
That's my favorite.
That's his most famous one. But he also used to say the reason he doesn't believe in God is because he can't see it. He'd rather worship the sun because you can see it. And
and there's a lot of, back in ancient history, people worshipped many different things.
Yeah.
So, to get started is, where did God come from? Who thought up of God? There's a lot of different angles to that. Me personally, I believe in God. I try to practice what I think God would want in somebody. But, you look back at ancient history, it was the king that ruled the land. And I think we developed, or I should say was developed, a God in regards to giving priests and other religious monarchies power, because who wanted to offend God? Who did not? Who wanted to go to hell? I want to go to heaven. So the fear of God. People feared God. They feared your religious monarchs that were the holy.
Yeah. I remember, I grew up in a Catholic. My mom was a strict Catholic. And if we were bad, you're going to go to hell. Or purgatory. That's her favorite word, was purgatory.
Well, that's the in-between.
Yeah. If we didn't shape up. And she put that fear of God, because you're like, I don't want to go in it. I want to burn in hell. So.
So you look back in, medieval times, Rome and Greeks and all that. And also there were religions that worshipped like Mother Earth, the Druids. You had the Jewish religion that was one God. You had the what are the
Well, you have like
the pagans.
Yeah, pagans.
That's what I was thinking of. You had many different religions that believed in a different god or multiple gods. Egypt,
Well, I think
who's to say who was right?
I think it's India. Their god's an elephant or something, isn't it?
Yeah, India.
Yeah.
So you said George Carlin. I can't see God, so I don't believe in him. Did anybody ever see any of those gods? Why did we believe in God so wholeheartedly and so invested, and it just incited fear on us?
Well, according to the Christian belief, God sent his son down, Jesus. So they did actually, who knows what the Bible is.
That was the Son of God.
It is the Son of God. So, we persecuted
Well, Moses supposedly talked to God in a burning bush.
True.
But only him.
Yep. Well, Jesus sacrificed himself for us, supposedly, too. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of... I remember the History Channel had a really banned from the Bible. And there are all the stories that never made it into the Bible. So, how do we know these stories even exist? How do we know how they even came about? That's the thing I wonder about.
So what I'd like to reflect is back in ancient times, how people feared God. They believed in God. No matter what God they believed in, it was still God. And they had a huge fear of upsetting the Almighty, because they didn't want to go to hell. So who created that? I personally think there was a power struggle between your religious sector and your kings. So instead of your king just having all the power, you had the religious monarchies that had power too, because everybody loved power.
Well, there's
And power made money.
well, way back like in the Greeks, there were several gods. You had Hercules, Zeus. I mean, there was gods. And supposedly, there's a story that I actually liked. It was from Socrates. I think it was Socrates. It was about the split aparts, about how the gods were jealous, and we paid the price because of the jealousy. Basically, you gotta watch the movie Butcher's Wife, because that's what this is. It's based on this theory. But the split aparts, and there were beings that looked funny, but they were happy, but they were opposites. One half was like happy one way, and one was happy another way. So, but they were opposites, but they were happier together. The gods were jealous of them, split them in half, and then scattered them all over the world. We're the descendants of those original beings, and our belly buttons is a scar of where we were once connected to our other half. So that's where the whole soulmates comes from. But the gods were jealous because they didn't like anybody being happy. So
That's an interesting thing about soulmates. Yes.
Yeah, I love that theory. I love it in the movie Butcher's Wife. It's a Demi Moore movie. It really explains it.
So, as we said, back in the days, people feared God. My grandparents, my parents, somewhat, but my great grandparents. It seems every generation that moves forward, we lose a little bit of that fear. We lose a little bit of our belief in God. I mean, honestly, God or no God, well, how can you let horrible things happen if you believe in God? I mean, how can God allow that to happen? I mean, horrible things. The sex trafficking, the slavery, the natural disasters, the homeless. I mean, how could God? And of course, the easy answer is, oh, well, he gave us
Free will.
Free will.
Yeah.
You can say that about everything. Free will. Is that a reason or an excuse or what? I mean, honestly, what is free will? Because in any business organization, you have free will within boundaries. So where are our boundaries? If God frowns upon a lot of things that his children are doing, where are the boundaries?
Well, I think a lot of people lost faith in God too, because every religion has their sets of rules and checks and balances, I guess you could say. And as I said earlier, I'm Catholic. There's things I'm not religious. I believe in God, but I'm not religious. But why I'm not religious is I can go murder somebody, and all will be forgiven by God. This is what the church tells me. If I truly am sorry.
So your behavior can be unchecked because it's all going to be forgiven.
Right. But I'm divorced. I'm going to hell. Doesn't matter if I'm sorry that I'm divorced and all this stuff. I'm going to hell. No matter what I do, I'm going to hell.
For whatever reason.
Right. So it's okay to murder somebody if you feel sorry for it. But if you get divorced, you're burning in hell. And it's like, okay, these rules do not apply anymore. They really don't. They're outdated. Priest. I think.
Well, let me ask you about the priest. Is how can the whole scandal of having sex with young boys?
Yeah.
How can that be accepted? How are they forgiven? How does nothing happen? They believe in God. How can God be okay with that?
Right. And they're supposed to be like the speakers for God, the representatives of God. And they're not being held to the same standards as we are. I think priests should be allowed to marry personally. The whole vow of chastity. I mean, maybe that would help prevent that they don't go after the little altar boys and altar girls.
Well, they weren't going after the girls for some reason.
Well, altar girls actually is newer.
Boys.
Well, it always was altar boys, but I think in the last 10 years they actually started adding girls.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was always boys.
So how can that be okay? How can your faith in God is so strong that you are a representative of his beliefs and you are the voice of that, and yet you're here molesting young boys and think that's okay? And they thought it was okay.
Yeah, they cover it up is what they do.
But they thought it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they cover it up. Oh, we can't, so many things get swept under the rug because they don't want to put a bad mark or a blemish on like religion or politics or whatever. They got to cover it all up. I mean, talk about taking the oath, It used to be you put your hand on the Bible and swore to God on it. It meant something. Nowadays, lie in Congress, lie in oath, lie here, nobody cares. Nobody believes anything bad is going to happen to them anymore.
There's a fried green tomatoes. There's a scene where they got the girl on trial, and the minister goes up to do his oath, but he says, "I want to use my Bible," because they didn't want to put his hand on the Bible. Because you saying that just reminded me of the movie. Uh, at the end, he lied because he was helping the girl get off. Because there she's, whatever, and they said, "Why did he do that?" She says, "Well, if you look real close, that wasn't the Bible he was swearing on. It was actually a copy of Moby Dick." It's so how far are they willing to go to protect a member of their parish? Because the girl really didn't do it, so that's what that whole scene was about. But he didn't want to lie under oath to God, so he used Moby Dick instead.
No. Nowadays, people they do not fear God. Every generation, as we're moving forward, is less and less active in churches and temples and mosques and everything. I mean, I think that religion is starting to fade, and that is a problem with today's society is the lack of God in our lives. God supposedly, structured our way of life to live within these boundaries, and nowadays it just seems like there is no boundaries, there is no justice in regards to put your hand on the Bible, lie, nobody cares.
That's right. When you see a kid acting up, the first thing everybody says, like I saw this girl, she called her dad everything but a white man, the name she was calling him, and I was like, oh my God, I would never talk to my father like that. And so it's because they have no fear of God anymore. And it's the truth. These kids act up, like they have no fear of consequences at all.
I think that's parenting. That's another topic we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
In a future
reference. But it still goes back to there is nothing being taught to these kids at all.
It kind of goes with other podcasts we had in regards to Slavs.
Mm-hmm.
How well we used to dress to how we dress today. How we believed in God, not so much anymore.
It used to be a thing, going back to that the podcast about the Slavs. Church, you put on your Sunday best and you go to church. Nowadays, you'll see people in shorts and a wife beater sitting in church. Look, at funerals, same thing. Funerals, you're got the minister there, all that. You're supposed to look really nice. People are showing up in jeans and t-shirts for a funeral. So it all kind of ties together. We just heard Pixie.
So my question is to you, as I said earlier, I believe in God. Do I go to temple? Not really. Did I go when I was a kid? Not so much. But I believe I believe religion's an internal thing, right? It's back in World War II and the years leading up to it, as Hitler was prosecuting the Jews and wouldn't let them practice their religion. It was said that you can make religion portable. You don't need some place to go to with a whole bunch of other people with the same belief to show that you are faithful and that you love God. Me personally, the portable was like an eye-opener for me when I heard about it. And I think God wants you to be the best person you can be. Wants you to be the best person. Sorry about that. Wants you to be the best person you can be. And you need to live your life with the faith of God and doing the best you can with what you got. That's just, I believe in, I do my best not to cuss. I don't steal. I I do speed sometimes. But I mean, I try to, you know, I try to be a good man.
Yeah. Like I said, I grew up, my mom is extremely Holy Roller Catholic, so I know all things of Catholic. She celebrates, she goes every Sunday. She goes every morning to church to get Eucharist, so I grew up with it. I basically lost, I just don't, not religious when I got to be an adult. And actually, it was the eye opener, truthfully, is when I was going through my divorce and all that. And just, I'm like, I don't, I just, I don't go to church, but I believe in God. I do. There's, when I have stuff going on, admit, I pray to God. I'm not afraid to admit that. Um, if anybody knows Steel Magnolias, Dolly Parton said it best. She goes, God doesn't care where you go to worship as long as you show up. That's her, one of her lines in that movie. And it's true. It doesn't matter if it's in this house or that house, or if you just do it from your bedroom. If you believe, you believe. If you don't, you don't. That's your right. But one thing I don't like is ones that are extreme. Like my mom, in all honesty, is like, oh, do you think everything's going wrong in your life because you're not religious? That has nothing to do with anything. I don't think that should be shoved down people's throats. I think that's what turns a lot of people off too, is when you get these really high, extreme, holy roller, like, oh my God, you know, just throw holy water on them and they'll be fine. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. I would like to have a conversation with God. That'd be nice, but I'm okay with just praying to him.
So I asked a question earlier. Why does God allow bad things to happen? And I've always said the answer is so you recognize the good things when they do happen. Because if it was only rainbows and unicorns and good things, that becomes a normal, and you don't recognize the good stuff anymore.
That is true.
But there's some things I don't have answers to that grind my gears. I mean, the sex trafficking, you know, child, anything, you know, abusing children. Just, I don't understand how God can sit on the sidelines and allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's the only, I don't understand that either. Like, especially like if somebody's like, say you're expecting a baby and all of a sudden you find out the baby's born with cancer. Like, this baby hasn't even had a life yet. It's not even born. Yeah. I don't understand that. I really don't. And I know everything happens for a reason. That's what we're taught. And I just like to know the reason sometimes. Like, why?
There is no reason.
There is no reason. We're not supposed to question, but you can't help but question sometimes.
There's no reason. It just happens, you know. So, I mean, do you believe in God? How much? Where's your faith? You know, as I said, I'm not a very religious person, but I just believe God wants me to be the best person I can be. So I try to live it.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what anybody believes, I just think we should still have just a tiny fear of God in each of us. Because what if everything ends and we get to the holy gates and pearly gates and he really does exist? If we're the ones that don't believe. Like, wow. But just to have that tiny fear, I think we still should have a tiny fear of God. Because you never know. He may just show up all of a sudden and back of us. Oh my God, there's God. But
so, thank you for listening. We appreciate your feedback. And until the next episode, God be with you.
And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and on Facebook. And you also find us on Spotify as well. So until the next episode, bye.
See you.